Welcome back to Barn Built Beaters. In this episode, we will be cutting off the excess frame rail, pushing the two halves back together, welding up that seam, so we have a complete chassis. But before we get too far into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future content. In the last episode, we measured out the wheelbase of this 2018 Dodge frame as well as the 78 stock F-250 frame. This measured in at 169. The Ford frame measured in at 133. So we have to subtract 3 feet or 36 inches. Now we'll measure this out, mark it, put a scribe line down it, and get to cutting. To be honest with you, I did not expect that to completely drop, so I'm just glad it didn't land on my foot. I was trying to cut it thin, and then I was gonna bend it back and forth to free it, but obviously it just dropped. Thank God my foot wasn't under there. Let's hope I can do this one just a little bit safer. As you can see, I've dressed the fittings where we're going to be welding, and I just have to touch up this end just to clean up some of the rough edges, and then we can finally slam these two halves back together and make one complete chassis. Now, with both right and left sides of the frame rail, both front and back, all dressed, we can push the two halves together, and I'm hoping it goes together pretty easily and I can level it out how it was from the factory. As you can see, we got both frame rails back together, so let me explain a little bit on what we did. As you can see, we have the digital angle finder. This is to find the angle of the frame rails. We did this previously, it was at 0.4, this is now at 0.5, and I'm really close, so I don't think 0.1 is going to make or break it, so I'm going to leave it how it is now before I mess one of my other measurements up. We are in the back half of the frame now, and what I did here is the exact same way I did the front to set my starting point of my tape measure. So I have the laser level here in the vertical position, lined up at the center point of the wheel. That's how I did the front half. I then laid the tape measure down and put it to 133 inches, and I have the laser lined up with 133 inches, not the center point. I then am using my high lift jack and pulling this frame half together until I get 133 inches. As you can see, I'm just a little tiny bit off, but for the entirety of the frame, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. So, since my angle is good and I'm nearly there at 133 inches, I'm just going to leave it rather than making it worse and taking longer. Our next steps will be to get the TIG torch out and just tack a couple places on this frame to hold this section in place, and then we'll move over to the other section and get that to 103 inches, tack that, and final weld it. want to say I apologize for the echo. I didn't plan on talking, so I didn't bring my mic, but here we are. We finished both sides of the frame rail for our first pass. I did everything except for the undersides, but as you can see, that's all the filler rod I have, and I'm getting a little low on gas, so might as well call it quits. This was my first time welding out of position. You can definitely see it in my welds, but as I went through and got more out of position, I got a little bit more comfortable being out of position, and my welds did improve, but they're not perfect. They're not Instagram worthy, but I'm still pretty proud of them. My favorite thing about welding is every single time you weld, you learn something. You learn how to make it more consistent, how to keep the puddle flowing, how to weld out of position, in position, you name it. It's just really interesting to me, and there's a lot of tips and tricks that you just pick up as you practice. That's going to wrap up this episode. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe. I'm not really sure what's next for the next video, but I'm thinking either we're going to take the body off the truck and start measuring some body mounts and seeing if we can make up some stuff. But I also think we should probably make a welding cart, because lugging the welder around along with the argon bottle, it's just no fun, and there's a better way to do it. Plus, it'd be a good little welding project and get me a little bit more familiar before I start making more stuff that actually really matters. So, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.